The arrival hall buzzed with the constant rhythm of wheels rolling, voices echoing through polished glass walls, and the distant crackle of flight announcements. Amelia Green stood near the exit with her heart drumming faster than she cared to admit. Her fingers tightened around the flimsy white sign she held, Mr. Ethan Black, the bold black letters already smudged from her nervous grip. She was supposed to look professional, confident, like she belonged here, but her sneakers squeaked when she shifted her weight, and her casual jeans looked painfully out of place among the sea of chauffeurs in crisp suits. Her older sister Claire had called that morning in a frenzy, pleading, "Please, Amy, just go to the airport and pick up Mr. Black. He's flying in from Tokyo. He's a client, an investor. I can't leave this meeting, and I need him to be taken care of. It's simple. Just hold the sign, smile, and take him to the hotel." Amelia had agreed without thinking too much. She didn't know who Ethan Black was, only that Claire worked in real estate and that he was apparently some millionaire who might invest in her company's new project. Now, as people streamed through the gate, Amelia's confidence melted by the second. Every well-dressed man that walked past made her question if she was standing too awkwardly, holding the sign too high, or looking too nervous. She blew out a shaky breath and muttered to herself, "How hard can it be to pick up a guy from the airport?" That's when she saw him. Tall, composed, and effortlessly magnetic, walking through the crowd as though time slowed for him. His charcoal gray coat draped perfectly over his shoulders, his steps were steady, and his eyes, sharp and observant, moved with the precision of someone who missed nothing. Even behind the tinted sunglasses, he exuded the kind of quiet authority that made people step aside without knowing why. He stopped just a few feet away, his gaze falling on the sign in her hands. For a second, Amelia forgot to breathe. "Miss Green." His voice was low, smooth, and calm, like velvet stretched over steel. She blinked, unsure what to say. Yes, Mr. Black, right." He gave a brief nod and extended his hand. His handshake was firm, steady, but his touch sent an unexpected warmth up her arm. "Claire spoke very highly of you," he said simply. Amelia's mind blanked. Highly. Her sister barely mentioned her except to remind her to stop borrowing her clothes. "Oh, that's nice of her," Amelia stammered. He gave a small smile, polite but distant, the kind that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Shall we?" he asked, glancing toward the exit. "I assume the car is ready." Her stomach dropped. Claire hadn't said anything about a car. Thinking quickly, Amelia forced a smile. "Of course, right this way." She led him to her little blue hatchback parked near the curb, the paint slightly chipped, one headlight fogged. She silently prayed it would start. When he saw it, his brows lifted slightly but he said nothing. He simply opened the passenger door and got in. She exhaled in relief when the engine roared to life on the first try. As they pulled out of the airport, silence filled the car, an awkward, heavy kind of silence. Amelia tried to focus on the road, but she could feel his presence beside her, composed and unreadable. Finally, he spoke. "You drive yourself." "Not often I meet someone in your position who doesn't have a chauffeur." "Yeah, I like the control," she said quickly, hoping that sounded smart. "Traffic in this city's unpredictable." He gave a small hum of agreement. "True, though I think you just enjoy the freedom." His tone was gentle, but it made her glance at him in surprise. How did he see through her so easily? After a few miles, he leaned back, eyes half closed. 16 hours in the air, he murmured. "Feels good to finally breathe." Amelia hesitated, then said softly, "Rough trip." He chuckled faintly. "Long trip. Everyone on that plane wanted something. Photos, signatures, promises. I don't even remember what quiet feels like anymore." For some reason, his weariness tugged at her. There was something lonely in the way he said it, something that didn't fit the image of a powerful millionaire. "Well," she said lightly, "I can promise you quiet. I'm great at not talking." That earned her the first real smile of the night, small, but genuine. "Then maybe this will be the best meeting I've had in months." They drove in comfortable silence after that. By the time they reached the highway, Amelia's nerves had eased a little. But her stomach growled loudly, betraying her. She flushed red. He glanced at her, amused. Dinner. I wasn't sure if you'd eaten, she mumbled, embarrassed. He tilted his head. There's a diner ahead. Let's stop. Her relief was instant. 10 minutes later, they sat in a quiet corner booth of a cozy roadside diner, the smell of coffee and butter filling the air. For the first time, he looked less like a man from a magazine and more like a person, his jacket off, sleeves rolled, his watch gleaming faintly under the warm lights. They talked, and surprisingly, he did most of it. About business, travel, and the people who only saw his wealth and not him. Amelia listened intently, her curiosity growing with every word. When he finally asked, "And what about you, Claire? What do you want out of all this?" She froze mid-bite. "Me?" He nodded. "Yes, you've got a way of listening that makes me forget the noise." "That's rare." Her heart skipped. "I don't know," she said softly. "Maybe. I just want something real. Something that doesn't disappear when the cameras turn off." His gaze softened. "You'd be surprised how hard that is to find." By the time they stepped outside, the sky was dark, painted in amber hues from the streetlights. He walked her to her car, his voice quieter now. "Thank you, Claire. I didn't expect tonight to feel." He paused, searching for the word. "Peaceful." She forced a smile, guilt knotting her stomach. "You're welcome, Mr. Black." He looked at her one last time before saying, "Ethan. Call me Ethan." As he drove away, Amelia stood frozen on the sidewalk, the cool breeze wrapping around her. She'd come to pick up a stranger for her sister, but somehow, she'd met someone who made her heart ache with something she couldn't name. And as she drove home, her thoughts circled one question she couldn't shake. What happens when he finds out she isn't Claire? Part 2. Amelia woke up the next morning with a heavy mix of excitement and dread. Her phone buzzed with a dozen missed calls from Claire. She answered groggily. "Claire, relax, I picked him up, okay. He's safe." "Safe?" Claire hissed. "Amelia, he called me this morning to thank me for dinner." "What did you do?" Amelia winced. "I didn't mean to. He just seemed so lonely. We talked. He thought I was you. I couldn't just correct him in the middle of it." "Oh, for heaven's sake," Claire groaned. "Do you even realize who he is? Ethan Black isn't just a client. He's a millionaire investor who could make or break my entire project. And now you." Her phone beeped. A message flashed on her screen. "Dinner tonight, 7 p.m. Same place. Ethan." Amelia's breath hitched. Claire's voice faded into the background. "Claire, I'll call you later," she whispered and hung up before she could be stopped. That evening, she stood outside the diner again, nerves coiling tight in her chest. When Ethan arrived, his eyes lit up, just slightly, but enough to make her heart skip. "You came," he said, sounding almost relieved. "I said I would," she replied softly. Dinner this time was different. The first time had been polite. Tonight felt real. He told her about losing his parents young, about how success had been his only way to silence the fear of being forgotten. He confessed that wealth had bought him everything except peace. "People love the idea of me," he said, staring into his cup. "Not the man I actually am." She reached across the table and said quietly, "Then maybe they've been looking at the wrong man." He looked up at her, something raw flickering in his eyes. "Maybe," he said, almost a whisper. "But you see me, don't you?" Amelia's throat tightened. She wanted to tell him the truth right there, but when he smiled at her like that, warm and grateful, she couldn't. For once in her life, someone looked at her like she mattered. They stayed until closing time, talking about books, movies, and everything in between. When they stepped outside, flashes went off. A cluster of reporters had appeared, calling his name. "Mr. Black, over here." "Who's the mystery woman?" Ethan's jaw clenched, but his hand found hers instinctively. "Ignore them," he murmured. "They'll twist anything." But she couldn't ignore the truth anymore. That night, back in her small apartment, she cried. The lie had gone too far. The next day, she texted him, "We need to talk." He agreed to meet at the same diner, though this time his smile didn't reach his eyes. She sat across from him, heart pounding. "Ethan," she began, I need to tell you something. What is it? He asked, his tone cautious. I'm not Claire, she said, barely above a whisper. The silence that followed was deafening. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stared at her. Finally, he said quietly, explain. She told him everything. The phone call, the airport pickup, how she hadn't meant to lie, how it had all spiraled. When she finished, he leaned back slowly, expression unreadable. So, everything we talked about, was based on a lie. No, she said quickly, tears filling her eyes. The words were real, the feelings were real, I just didn't know how to tell you without losing that connection. He looked away, pain flickering across his face. You think I would have cared who you were? I was afraid you wouldn't see me, she whispered. You're surrounded by people who pretend, who use you. I didn't want to be one more person wanting something. He stood, his voice quiet but sharp. You already got something, Amelia. My trust. Then he walked out, leaving her alone with her tears and the empty echo of his name. The next few days were endless. She went back to her small routines, pretending everything was fine. But at night, she replayed their conversations, the way he had looked at her like she was more than a shadow of her sister. She missed him more than she wanted to admit. A week later, as she was closing up the bookstore where she worked, a familiar voice spoke behind her. You recommend anything for sleepless nights? She froze. Ethan stood at the door, holding 2 cups of coffee. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes, softer than before. She swallowed hard. You shouldn't be here. Maybe not, he said, stepping closer. But I couldn't stop thinking about what you said, that I'm surrounded by people who only see what I can give them. You were the first person who didn't. Even if it started with a lie, it felt real. Her eyes welled up again. So what does that mean? He smiled faintly. It means I'd like to start over. No titles, no lies. Just 2 people who met at an airport by mistake. She let out a trembling laugh. You mean the woman who picked up the wrong man? He chuckled softly. Exactly. And the man who's been waiting for her ever since. The city hummed quietly around them as they stood beneath the bookstore's glow. For the first time, there were no lies between them. Only 2 hearts that had collided through a mistake neither would ever regret. Sometimes fate doesn't send the right person. It sends the wrong one at the perfect time. And sometimes, that mistake is the beginning of everything real.